Mike and Alicia, thank you for joining us today on the Wallet Win podcast. I'm a fan of your podcast. I just really appreciate the way that you invite your audience, your listeners, into your life, and have shared just the wisdom that you have over, all the years you have of marriage, of raising 10 kids. There's a lot that we can learn from you, and I'm very just pleased and honored to have you guys as guests on our show today.
Oh, goodness. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it is great. The work that you're doing is so important, Jonathan. And this is what our church, it is what our world needs, is to get hold of some of the things with our money, with the priorities in our lives.
Yeah, just get down to the nitty gritty of like, how do you do this? Like every day, how do you do family life? And so it's fun to collaborate with somebody who's taking another aspect of family life. So
That's right.
This is gonna be great. We're looking forward to talking to you guys.
Awesome. Well, we are honored that you are here. And for those who might not be familiar with you and the work that you do, can you just briefly share with folks what it is that you do and who you serve?
Yeah, so we're Mike and Alicia Hernon. We have 10 kids. We actually have 5 grandkids as well. And for about 7 now, I guess going on 8 years, we've been doing the Messy Family podcast, which just started as a kind of our smaller little kind of volunteer side hustle that then ended up turning into our full-time work. And so we've been doing this now 3.5, going on 4 years. And our hope is to be a mentor, a
older brother
and sister to married couples. And so we try to offer insight both into our personal life, but also some principles that they can apply in their own life.
Yeah.
And we really see our focus as empowering moms and dads to embrace their sacred calling. I mean, that's our mission, is to say, how do we help moms and dads? Their life is so hard and so challenging, particularly today.
Right.
But how can we say, hey, these are some of the mistakes we've made. Let's be honest about some of the challenges. But also let's aspire to greatness. How do we get there in a real way and offer some practical advice to parents?
So we kind of moved on from just our podcast to now we have a website with blog posts and downloadable worksheets about communication and discipline and toddlers and technology. And, so a lot of written resources that we've been developing. And then last year, we even expanded into courses. So now we do courses for moms, for dads, for couples. So there's just a lot of needs. And we're really just trying to meet people where they're at and kind of package the information that we have to give in the podcast, but in other ways as well.
Awesome. And can I just say before we dive in, I've always loved your name, the Messy Family Project, just because the temptation, I became a mom in 2014, which was kind of the start of the Instagram era of motherhood, where it's like, it better be buttoned up. Everybody better be in some vintage organic onesie. And it needs to all, you're also like making your own sourdough, and this pressure just keeps mounting. And I feel like a lot of families are being crushed under this weight of feeling like they need to uphold perfection. And just to the title of what you guys do, the Messy Family Project, it's real. And it's authentic. And I just want to thank you for giving people permission not to be a mess, but to just acknowledge that we're striving for holiness and sanctity kind of in the messiness of our world.
That's
exactly.
right. That's
And
right.
so I love that.
Because we have our secular culture that creates that standard and image, but it's also even within the church, right? The church presents this beautiful and amazing ideal of what family life should be like. And sometimes that can be overwhelming. And I look at my own life and I say, well, I'm a bit of a mess sometimes, but I want to be honest about it so that I can move forward, know? And we use this example, particularly over the holidays, thinking about, you don't invite your kids in to bake cookies because it's going to be clean and an efficient way to get the job done, right?
Not why you do that. No.
It's going to be a little messy, right? But you do it for the formation, for the relationship, for maybe skills, all these other reasons
Traditions,
that are
rituals.
That are really important, but it's a little bit messy. Let's just be honest with it and have fun with it and move forward from there. So
Amen. Yeah. I made a loaf of bread yesterday with our 3-year-old and 5-year-old, and it is very sanctifying. Especially those 3-year-olds, they just want to keep pouring in more ingredients.
I know.
It's testing for
I love
sure.
it. I love
My
it.
purgatory will be baking with children. I guarantee you. I'm not that and teaching teenagers how to drive. Yes, that's my purgatory.
Oh, I bet that one is going to be
Mhm.
testing.
Yeah, that'll be great.
Well, so you mentioned something there about, why you bake the cookies. You mentioned you tapped on tradition and ritual and things to look forward to.
Yeah.
And I want to have this conversation today with our listeners of how to really create a family culture, especially in a society in which it feels like social media is running our families.
Mhm.
And if we don't get actively involved in deciding what are we going to do as a family and what do we value and who are we as a family unit, society is going to give it to us, and then we're just going to live out this script that the world has handed us and our children.
That's so true.
And I find that terrifying, and I don't want to wake up 20 years from now wondering what happened and who the heck are we. And I know you don't want that for people, and other people don't want it either, but you have to be intentional. And I know you guys are experts in this, and you do it so well. So I'd love to dive into this conversation.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, when we hear when we talk to couples in our events and things like that, one thing that we hear again and again, and people are so afraid, really, of the effect of the culture on their children. How do I keep my kids Catholic? How do I make sure that, like we had actually a woman just a couple days ago in the audience said, how do I make sure that my kids turn out okay? And we're like, she's like, I'm just so worried about that. And we were like, yep. Yes, I'm sure you are worried about that. And in the end of the day, obviously there's no guarantees, right? Because we have free will, but good.
And the way we look at it is that there are two types of families out there, right? There are families who live for pleasure and families that live for purpose. And the families who live for pleasure are really moving from moment to moment, dealing with the urgent that's right in front of them. And when they have a downtime, they look for distractions with screens or other entertainment. Whereas the family that lives for purpose, they may have those worries, they may have those concerns, but they don't let that stop them from living an intentional life.
Right.
And they're not raising kids, they're really forming adults.
And so what we've come to realize is that the answer to inoculating your children against the culture of the world is to have a family culture that is stronger, more authentic, more dynamic, more real. So then when your child experiences real fun and real love and real beauty in your family, even if they go out into the world and they dabble or they flirt around with the allures of the world, if you will, they will see, wait a minute, this isn't authentic love. This isn't authentic beauty. Yeah. This is counterfeit. But to do that, like you just said, you have to be very intentional about the culture you're stewarding within your home, because it's not going to happen by accident. And every family has a culture. Every family has a culture already. The question is our culture reflecting our deeply held beliefs and values? And to make that connection between your values and your vision for who you want your kids to be and the culture you have within your home, that bridge is intentionality, and really making speaking about it with your spouse, communicating, and then living in a way that communicates those values. So it's not just what you say, right? It's how you live. That's family culture, is how you live. It's unspoken. This isn't like a mission statement. No, this is expectations, beliefs, what is acceptable, what is verboten, kids pick that stuff up, really, even in spite of what you say. Because if you say one thing and then you live another, they're going to go with the actions, I mean, we all do that, because words can be very important, but they need to be backed up by actions. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, I like, what that mom who you were talking with the other day, there's going to be an effect from the culture on my kids.
Yes.
And so there's an effect. Sure, that culture is going to have an effect, but the culture of our family has an effect too.
Exactly.
There's not just one culture that's coming after your kid. We can build up our own. And I love how you said, it should reflect and really bring to life your deepest held convictions and beliefs.
That's right.
And yeah, I think, we can run around and have these convictions, have these beliefs, but if it's not intentional, if we don't sit down, right? My parents handled money, I think, pretty well, but they never really like sat down and said, "Hey, this is what you do. This is what you don't do. This is what this is for." Right.
Yeah.
So even though they did it, I wasn't quite sure about what was going on. So even if you are living out, a very faithful life, a strong life, you need to talk about it. And so, what are ways to take it from that action, right? Because I think if it came so naturally, of just I have this belief, I have this conviction, and there we go. We'd all be doing it, but so many of us aren't doing it well. How do we start doing it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So first, just kind of looking at the reality that in days gone by, like talking about our faith, the Catholic culture, there was an ethnic Catholic culture that was present. There were festivals and parties and all these things, those were basically tethers. Those were other things tying our children and the whole legacy we were passing on. And essentially, we don't have that kind of culture in the world today that's supporting our beliefs and values. So we need to do it within our home. And so it's creating those little almost mini festivals, those mini traditions and rituals in our home. So it's like if you value money, right? Or good stewardship within the home, right? As you all talk quite a bit about. Well, what are the ways that we're living that out with our kids so they not only see it, but they understand it? And so, simple little things like I make sure, and you guys probably do this even with the little guys, we give money at church. Like I do most of my giving online. It's more efficient. I've got a reminder set up, but physically handing our kids money so they can put in the collection basket is a little marker, right? A little tradition.
This is what you do. Yeah.
Lent, people do those giving bowls and different things that it creates this tradition. Or like within our home, this is totally not necessarily per se religious, but like after Christmas Mass, we go to, the Christmas Eve Mass, and then we go around and look at the Christmas lights. But we have this whole kind of tradition around this. So our kids have now an expectation. This is what we do. And why? Because now we're all oriented in the same direction. Can I tell you, there is no fighting because everybody is looking forward to this. There is fun, because if your traditions are not fun,
then why are you doing them?
Yeah. But if it's fun, it's building the sense of community, a sense of expectation. And they say, oh, why aren't we doing this? The kid starts asking those questions, right? The kids want it. And so those little decisions, we have a Christmas dinner and we have why is this? Because this is the day Christ was born. And it's like, yes, you need to articulate this, because if we just kept doing this, it would become an empty habit as opposed to a ritual. Ritual is something you apply
emotional
connection to, and usually oriented towards the sacred on some level. And again,
higher realities, like more abstract values, are connected.
If that makes sense, right? So these are the little traditions. And I think parents need to be the keeper and the instigator, but not the sole owner of those traditions. For them to really be effective, for your family culture to go beyond just the two of you, you create them in such a way that you're setting the kids up. And then it's like a flywheel, once you get it started, it keeps going. So now we have the older kids who are helping the younger kids.
Right.
And those are simple examples, right?
And now we have the joy of even passing that on to our grandchildren.
Yeah.
It's
and
really
seeing our own kids living that out, right?
Yes. Yes.
That's beautiful.
My daughter last year for Christmas gave us a watercolor picture she did this watercolor from an actual photograph that she took. And it was Mike and I holding our granddaughter. I could probably start crying telling you this, but it was Mike and I holding our granddaughter. And we were at a prayer meeting when we were all praying together.
Yeah, festival praise.
Yes. And we had our hands in prayer. And our granddaughter, when we were holding her, she was imitating us. And now we have this beautiful watercolor picture of the two of us praying and our granddaughter imitating our bodies, what we were doing. And it's just like, and I saw the picture, I just started weeping, because this is why we've been doing all of this. so I could transmit our values that we've received from our beautiful Catholic faith, that we have those, we've transmitted them to our children, and they're transmitting them to their children. And what a privilege and an honor, to be part of this beautiful legacy, really. And when you talk about family culture, really, in some ways, our entire ministry, our entire podcast is about family culture and helping families create that culture. And we've actually been able to kind of distill that down to 5 steps. And I know we want to talk about this later, but this is the family board meeting, which is this course that we're offering at the end of February. And what the family board meeting is, it's not really for your family, it's just really for the couple, but it's about your family. But it's to help couples move through these steps to really examine, and then to be, to create, to discover their own values and vision, and then to intentionally, how are we going to implement these things within our home? And it's a very, it's taken us a while to really be able to articulate something that we kind of just did naturally in a way, and I think, the Holy Spirit helped us in being able to observe many amazing Catholic families that we have really learned a lot from. But to be able to take all that in and articulate it, that's really what that course is about. So when you ask Jonathan about how do you do this, it's like, how much time do you have? It's like, we could talk for a long time about that. But anyway, there are steps to do it for sure. And that's really what our ministry, and in some ways, is really all about.
So I want to back up a little bit. We'll get into talking about the family board meeting in a little bit here. But when did you guys start to realize that you needed to? Were you starting to have traditions kind of beginning, and then you began to think, all right, let's capture that one. That was a good one. Yeah. Let's keep that one going. Just because I think about our own marriage, we've been married now 10 years.
Yes.
And I would say for the first few years of marriage, I felt like we were kind of floundering, and it was us taking what our parents gave us and then just kind of like, oh, okay, I guess we do that. And it took us a while to realize, like, no, we don't really want to eat that anymore on that holiday. We'd like to eat this instead.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then when our kids came along, it was kind of like the permission giver to us to start being like, yeah, we're going to ditch this party, that party, and this one, and we're going to plug in this religious tradition instead. Yeah. And that was difficult for us to do. And in some ways, I feel like we're still peeling that off.
Sure.
Peeling off family obligations that other people expect you to do for the sake of your own family culture.
That's
and
right.
Starting to create that. So what was that process like for you guys?
Yeah, I think the first thought, and you can jump in here.
Oh, don't worry, I will. No, just kidding.
Never a problem there.
But you're so sweet to give me permission.
That's it. So, but looking at like something as simple as Christmas, it's just in my mind for whatever reason, because I think that's a big tradition, right? But it's there are so many other things beyond just like the religious holidays and things like that when we talk about family culture. But like for Christmas, right? We were traveling to our in-laws. My in-laws and we were always kind of following their traditions for the first probably 5 years, give or take. But then it was like, you know what? Let's start establishing ourselves. So I think there's a wisdom in following somebody else, because you have so many things that just changed. You just get married, you have kids, maybe a new house, maybe a new job, all these things that are changing. There's probably some wisdom in really saying, I really want to follow someone else's traditions for the moment. And maybe you don't have traditions that are from your own family of origin that you want to follow. So I think there's some great, finding a good family you can model after, because the more that you can follow them, the more that it gives you the freedom and the confidence to say, oh, you know what, we're going to tweak that. And I think that's what we as Catholics have to recognize, particularly, is that there are so many pathways to heaven. The religious orders have shown us that there are so many diverse ways to do it. And I think, one of the things that we have become more and more confident over the years is, this is how the Hernons do it.
That's right.
And when we talk on our podcast, we hope we don't impose our way. We want to share our experiences, but also insights from others, as well as some principles that apply to everybody. And so I think when So I don't know if I'm answering your question exactly, but I think, getting to the place where we, within that 5 to 10 year time frame, is really when we started making things our own.
Mm-hmm.
And then it really, I still think there are things that now as grandparents, we're kind of, we're setting ourselves up for complete world domination, just to be clear, having our grandkids. But now we're elevating some of those traditions to, this is good for even our married children. Like, this is part of the traditions. Like, we do a Sunday night dinner that has everybody come in, right? And that wasn't an experience we had growing up, but that was because we have now seen what that looks like, and they have all bought into it, right? They all said, yes, we want this too.
Yeah.
And so as our kids have gotten older, they have actually helped us draw out and make new things. So it's not a one and you're done. I wish we were probably more intentional in the early days, but I think there's some wisdom in kind of following that. I don't know if you think.
Honestly, I feel like the example that you gave of how, you said you were floundering, you followed your parents, I think that's very insightful, because I think that that's true for a lot of people. And I think that was true for us. And I wouldn't have ever thought about it until you said it. But I think that's really true. And I think that as far as figuring out what works for us and what doesn't, it's just by doing it. It's by doing it. And then you'll observe what gives us life and what are our kids buying into. Now, sometimes, and just to kind of qualify that a little bit, there's certain things that you do have to kind of force your kids to do, that they don't want to do. But once they do it, once it's over, you can all be like, what? That was actually good. That was better than I thought. Like, for example, one thing, not that all traditions are religious, but on Good Friday, we do outdoor stations, which we don't do really. We should probably do it more often during Lent. Right. But we do stations like at our church during Lent or at home. But on Good Friday, we always, whether it's raining, whether it's snowing, it doesn't matter. We always do the outdoor stations. And even if people are visiting with us, we just bring them with us. But we have found that there's an expectation now that's what we will do, that we will walk the way of Christ, and that we will pray together and sing together. And that has brought life, even though it's difficult when you're like, oh, it's raining outside, and the kid's like, I don't want to go, or whatever. But we've done that now for 20 years because it has brought life. But there's other things that we've done. Like, we've tried to go and sing in nursing homes and things like that, which I really, really love to do. And with COVID, of course, messed things up, which I would like to go back and doing that. But I wouldn't say that that's necessarily a tradition at this point, because it was a little bit more difficult to implement. So when it's something that everybody's buying into, and everything, the kids are saying, well, why don't we do this? Can we do this? And they're reminding you of it. I feel like that really helps, because again, it's communicating values, what we value as a family, which isn't just normal Catholic values like holiness or kindness or generosity. It's like, no, that everybody should have that. What do we have that makes us different from other people?
Right. It's a combination of what we share in common, as well as what's unique and particular to us.
Right.
This is just kind of a curiosity, but I'm wondering if you've ever tried to implement a new tradition and it just kind of blew up in your face and you never did it again.
How much time do you have?
And if somebody's trying to do that, how do you notice it right away and just stop trying to force it?
So we have, and so the idea of, I'm going to give you.
I thought of something, but go ahead.
So I'm going to say something first, the prequel. So I spent a number of years in politics, so I'll answer the question that I think I want to. One of the things that I think is important when you look at your family culture, and we have tried to break this down into categories, that there are priorities, as opposed to saying everything is equal, every tradition, no, you got to start with the first things first. And as Catholics, as people of faith, our spiritual life of the home, those traditions are more, foundational, but also your marriage. This is your family. The family came from your marriage. Then it's the relationships in the home. And then it is the giftedness, developing the giftedness of each individual, whether it be lessons or activities or sport, educational, otherwise. And then it's the family operations, meaning the chores, the schedules, how things work, right? And I think by putting things in order, you can say, okay, if I'm starting out and I want to know what am I going to do first, start with first things first.
Yeah.
Get your house in the right priority order. It doesn't have to be perfect, but if you are, simply figuring out your schedule, but your marriage is on the rocks, or you don't have time for date nights or
Right.
what, well, you got to work on this. So, but in light of kind of getting first things first, that then leads you to the ability to say, okay, this is how we're going to implement things. And when we've tried to implement new things, and so we do family meetings on Sunday, and we'll try to institute a new discipline routine where they were going to be, we wanted the idea of the older kids meant, do you remember this?
Yeah. Yes. Good.
So we were on this,
we took the older 4 kids.
And we said, we're going to pair you up with younger kids, and you're kind of going to be their older big brother. I mean, you are their big brother, but like a mentoring kind of role.
And you're going to have to do chores with them and blah, blah, blah.
Help train them in all these different chores. And we're like, delegation. This sounds like a great idea. And then the girls, our teenage daughters, are like kind of pushing back, asking questions, and then our older son goes, guys, stop fighting it. And he says, don't worry, they'll give up in about a week or 2,
No, they literally said that right in front of us. And we were like, and I was like, oh my gosh, our children know us so well.
So anyway, yes, that was a fail.
That was a buzzkill.
Yeah, that was right on the front end.
One tradition actually that I was thinking of that we started doing, and then I was like, this is not working, is we used to go to the Easter Vigil at Franciscan University. We live in Steubenville, Ohio, and so we used to go to the Easter Vigil when we were first married, and 2 kids, 3 kids, and I remember, I think it was our 3rd child, and it was like 10:30 at night. I was all the way in the back, in the like hallway area, pushing a double stroller with 2 kids in it crying. And I remember at that moment thinking, what am I doing? This is so stupid. Like, I'm never doing this again. And we never did.
And
the thing is that like, I know other people who do that.
And then it works for them.
And it works for their kids, and it's totally fine. And more power to you. Yes, go do that thing. But for us, I remember at that moment being like, I'm never doing this. And so then we started doing Easter Sunday Mass, and we all sing for Mass together. I've always led music at our church. And now then it was like, as the kids got older, they would join the choir as well. And now that's our tradition is, 10 o'clock Mass on Easter Sunday morning, and we all sing together, and it's awesome. So anyway, that's one example of something that blew up. 2 examples, I guess.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And so I was wondering this earlier, but this has really brought it to the front, is as you're looking to establish these traditions, I mean, gosh, it's almost any family activity, but especially those that you want to repeat and really have a meaning there. How do you craft those experiences, but taking into account, especially if you have a range of ages in your family, so it's still appealing, to the teenager, but it's not torture for everybody because there's a 2.5-year-old there.
Yes. Well, one of the things is we created mandatory fun days, right? So Sunday is family fun day, and this was when we had teenagers. That was where the little
we still
guys
have teenagers.
Well, yeah, but particularly in the early days, right? When the teenagers, they would drag their feet. They wanted to go be with their friends. They wanted to do X, Y, or Z. And
on Sundays.
Sundays, and I'm like, no. And we created a wall around this and made it special. And
we've actually had to re-establish that with our current teenage sons, who are kind of like
chomping
really
at the bit, going with their friends.
Wanting to, I planned this one Sunday, and literally just like last Sunday, we had to say to them, hey, just a reminder, no, we're together. We're together on Sundays.
And so what we did as we launched this, because again, looking at kind of how we prioritize, and again, I don't think we started with this order, but we've kind of discovered this order that the relationships within the home after your marriage, the relationships between siblings, because they're fighting, they're arguing, there's all these just, challenges, right?
Conflicts.
We wanted to create a weekly time where we're just all heading in the same direction and having fun together.
Right.
And so, so we started, for us, water was always a great, if we could get outside and there was water involved, pool, lake.
It's a great equalizer.
everyone seems to love it, right? And so we've tried many things. We've gone to museums, we've gone to zoos, and there are different ways that we can do this. But as a parent, you need to be sensitive. You're not taking a poll and doing whatever the kids want all the time. But you also are being sensitive to the fact that, okay, this one isn't working, and we try to adjust. We don't give up, because I think so many times we thought our teenagers hated it. And on our 100th podcast, we interviewed them, and that came up. And I'm like, they said, that was always fun. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Because you never gave us the impression that you enjoyed that. And today, that tradition keeps on, so that our married kids who rolled their eyes and dug in their heels when we had mandatory fun day on Sunday we need to have togetherness as a family. That was so ingrained in them as married kids.
Now they're like, what are we doing together this Sunday?
What are we doing Sunday? Sunday. This is family day. This is what you've taught us.
And they get mad if we let the younger kids, if they go off and do something or have another commitment, they get really super annoyed. Or even playing like video games with their friend, like online video games. Our older kids are like, hey, get those teenagers up here. They're not allowed to do that with their friends, And we're like, yes, you are right.
And we're old and tired now, so it's really helpful.
Let some things slide.
Yes, it's nice to have some adults on our side to help raise the.
But that's the big deal, right? Is figuring out that wide range, and there are challenges, and there are times where you need to divide and conquer.
For sure, yeah.
I think there's something beautiful about us all playing together, and even setting the older kids aside and say, hey, we're going to be doing these things that are going to be more oriented. Like we'd go to like mini golf. Everybody seemed to like mini golf, but we need the older kids to help the younger kids.
But if we went to like a children's museum, that was definitely geared towards like kids under 10, the older kids a lot of times will take in that role of the adult. Like even a 13-year-old will find joy in watching their 2-year-old or 4-year-old sibling playing in water or discovering something for the first time, or things like that. So there are definitely, like Mike said, water, I feel like that's a great equalizer, because everybody has fun with that. Water parks, indoor water parks are the best. But other activities, you can either help the older kids will help the younger kids, or like Mike said, we really having a big family, and to anybody who does have a big family, the whole divide and conquer is really important strategy. Like
if you're trying to do prayer, right?
Yeah, like for prayer, exactly. Like a lot of times we'll pray with our younger children when we put them to bed, and then they would be down, and then we would have a second prayer time in the evenings, a little bit more with our older
upgraded
kids.
Prayer.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. Because maybe the 3-year-old would be super disruptive in a rosary, but I did want to give our older kids that time of really experiencing
and even
that
like
really
Lectio
meditative, or like reading scripture and talking about it. Hey, the reality is that it's not going to work for a 6-year-old. So let's get the kids who are 8 and under, put them to bed, and then we have another 15 minutes or so that we can pray with our older kids. And we did that for years. And I do think that's really important, because, and yes, sometimes our family prays all together, but not all the time, because the older kids have different needs. And I think it shows respect for their needs, that you're not always dumbing down things and that you're not always simplifying things, but that you're saying, no, I recognize that you're getting ready for adulthood here, and we're going to respond to that as well. And that also goes for the family fun day. Sometimes we put the little kids down for a nap, and then we would play, poker or Risk, or, like other more complicated board games, or do it when the little guys are in bed, and then we have time, with the older kids. So we do all kinds of stuff.
Oh, Risk. That's like the board game that could go for hours, right?
Oh yeah. That Settlers of Catan, like Carcassonne. We have lots of Ticket to Ride. You can go on and on. Yeah.
Oh, that's fun. So as you are going about these years of kind of building this family culture, and you're discovering your traditions, you're leaning in, how can you make sure that they stay protected in kind of just that busyness of life?
Yeah.
That the traditions stay protected?
Yeah, because it could easily, you enter into a busy season and then everything could come off the hinges.
That's right.
Derail, and then you could just, it was a chapter from long ago and it now no longer exists.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And this is a plug for the family board meeting, to be very honest with you, because when we look at we were gifted this. We didn't create it. We have modified it and developed it and refined it, if you will. But what we did, and this is probably going on, it's like 15 years now, something like that, 15 plus years, that we've been annually taking a look at where our family culture is at.
Right.
And so this idea of the family board meeting is that you and your spouse are the board for your family. You know, every corporation, every nonprofit has a board that helps guide it strategically and evaluate where are we today and where do we want to be tomorrow. And really one of the key elements for us that we really refined in the family board meeting process that we were gifted is adding this whole idea that it begins with looking at your family culture. And so annually taking time and saying, assessing where are we in the basic broad 5 categories of our family life. How are we doing? Because ultimately the family culture should be passing on to your kids and yourselves a clear sense of your identity, belonging, and mission, right? You know, that is really the goal of a family culture.
That's right.
Identity, belonging, and mission. And so then breaking that out and saying, okay, here are the ways that we live this out in our spiritual life of the home, in the marriage, the relationship, you know, all those different areas, and saying, how are we doing? So that we as a couple, we as a board can look and say, okay, Hernon Family Inc., this is where we're going.
Right.
This is where we are succeeding and doing well. Because sometimes we get down on ourselves and we don't realize, oh my gosh, we actually created a whole new habit this year. That's a big deal. Let's celebrate that.
Right.
Or, you know, there's an area that we fell off. And, you know, do we want to continue that? No, it's not working. Let's try something different.
Exactly.
You know, taking time. And for us, we do that usually in one weekend with a little bit here and there. But we go through this whole process of the family board meeting, beginning with that assessment and then walking through the steps.
And the last step is making it a reality. That's what we call it, making it a reality. And we have a calendar where you look at the year and you say, okay, here's where we're going to visit family. Here's where we're going to get together with this couple.
Here we're going to go on retreat here.
Exactly. We're going to do a family retreat at this time. Because if you don't get out of the gerbil wheel, you know, if you don't just step out and be like, okay, wait a minute, what are we doing again? You know, you have to do it because you're right. That's what will happen. These things, you will just get caught up in the business of life and things will fall to the wayside. Now, that's not to say that, of course, when you have little kids, someone's getting sick, you know, someone has to, you know, this happened, that happened. And yeah, of course, you have to be flexible. But at least if you have you have a plan. And the key is that you communicate about it together.
Right. That you're united in that.
Yes. Plan. And I was thinking about this when Mike was talking before, but I forgot to say it, that really the goal of the family board meeting and living your family culture intentionally, one of the most important elements of doing that is couple unity and the communication between the two of you. Because all of this is contingent upon your marriage, the strength of your marriage, your communication. And so that we really want to give couples tools and
to develop that unity, right?
Yeah, exactly. Tools and encouragement and inspiration, because it has to start with the unity between the two of you. And then everything is built on that. So you can help keep each other accountable to do exactly like what you're saying, to not let things just fall to the wayside because you forget. Now, of course, sometimes you both forget,
okay.
But that's okay. But at least if you're doing it together, that helps.
Do you guys have a favorite time of year where you like to have your family board meeting?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, our anniversary is January 8th. And so we would very naturally almost always do it in January because we're like kind of looking at the whole year.
We might start some of the conversations when we're driving for the holidays. We'll start the beginning kind of prep talks, if you will.
Yeah. But I would say January is really the best time to do it. And we have free resources on our website where you can download worksheets to do it.
We talked for multiple hours on podcasts about the idea of the board meeting. And we did an hour-long webinar with a couple hundred folks just 2 weeks ago, a week or two ago.
Yeah. So there's the free resources on our website. But then this year, we're actually hosting a paid course at the end of February. So it's a little bit late, but well, it's better late than never, right? So I would say the beginning of the year is the best time. Another really good time to do a family board meeting is probably like in August or July before the school year starts, because some families kind of, you know, I know for us, We are looking at educational choices every year. What are we going to do? What classes, what activities do we want to, like focus on for this child or that child? And so sometimes August seems a little bit late to make those choices. So maybe like July, August for some couples is also a very good time.
So the new year and then the family new year.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Just kind of all the fresh starts.
That's right. Exactly.
So in this, so you've got the worksheets, you've got your webinar where you've talked about it, and then you're launching this brand new course. Are you actually going to take people through this process to kind of make sure they don't just print it out and it creates dust on it and they actually get it into their life?
Yeah. So what we've done is we've created a beautiful binder, right? So for those in the US at least, we have this beautiful binder that really walks them through the process. We will be teaching the session, so we'll have kind of the big principles to apply, so they get a clarity on, because we go through in the beginning how to do an assessment and what does that look like, and some practical tools of how to really dive deep in that, and how to from the very beginning drive towards unity as a couple, because that's going to be needed
that's the
throughout.
key. Yeah.
And how to ask the Lord for his inspiration as you go through this process. Then the second step is really understanding the mission of the Catholic family, which is universal to all Catholic families. But then what's your unique values and vision? And that really helps shape things. So we're basically going to start from the very top and work our way down, because when you get unity and clarity
on the big things,
the small things actually find a lot of, they find their place.
Right.
But each step of this, 5-step process, we walk with couples in both teaching them, but also having mentoring sessions. So again, now you can do this on your own, and we highly encourage it. And we've had thousands of families that have gone through it on their own.
Right.
And we do have, I think, plenty for them to just do it on their own. And we couldn't speak more highly of it. It's really been a powerful tool for us. But for those who are interested in us walking through with them, as well as being a part of a community of about probably 60, 70 couples.
It's not a huge group, because we really want to be able to be available to mentor people. And if we had hundreds of couples doing it, so we really limit it to about, 50 or 60 couples. And like you said, we have heard from people who say the reason we did this course is because we've wanted to do this for years, but we never got to it. So we're like forcing ourselves to do it by taking the course. And so, and even if couples, there's more for them to talk about that has to extend beyond the weekend, especially if it's their first time, that's fine.
It's about starting it.
It's about starting it, and it's about getting those tools. And also, it's really inspiring to meet other couples literally from around the world, who are good Catholic families who are just doing what you're doing. It's really an awesome weekend. We love doing it. So,
yeah, we often say that information alone is not what's going to lead to transformation. It's information inside of a community, and that's how things really get into your life. Unless you're a super choleric type A, really driven type person who's just going to make something happen, which is not most people.
Yes.
Having support is how you actually get it out. In some ways, we're in an era of information overload. You could find out anything. Gosh,
so true.
Yeah.
It's actually overwhelming. And so sometimes just to get something simple that you can implement that cuts out the noise is actually a gift in itself.
Yeah. And one thing too about what I love as we've articulated this process is that it really speaks to different types of personalities.
Yes.
Because there is a place in the family board meeting for your type A choleric, for sure. But you know what? There's also a place for your sanguine. There's also a place, for your melancholic, for all of the different personalities, because the reality is that none of us have it all, right? And we all need each other, and everyone has gifts that they are bringing to their marriage and to their family. And I think sometimes some of those gifts can go overlooked, or especially if you have somebody with a really strong personality, then somebody else doesn't feel like they're ever able or given the space to really say, or they're put down for their big dreams.
I was going to say that. Yeah. Like we have. I'm a bit of a dreamer, right? Okay, so I always think big and strategic, and sometimes in the clouds. Alicia is very practical, and she's like, okay, so what are we doing with that big idea? Like,
I'm making a list. What's the first thing? I've heard you talk for 20 minutes. What am I writing down?
And I think there's a beauty in the complementarity of the couple.
You need both,
but also through this process, we've seen couples who are like, we both aren't dreamers, or we're both not planners, or that we need help, and so we're not meant to do this alone. Not only are you as an individual, you have to do it with your spouse, but you also as a couple, you need other people to help you,
like a community, like you're saying.
The community helps say, okay, I see a path forward now, because you've helped me recognize I have a giftedness in this area, but I don't necessarily have all the strengths. So I need to ask for help and advice. And we've just seen enough couples that we're able to help them and direct them so they can go to the right place. Yeah. But then it goes down to, simply saying, okay, every week, this is the simple 10-minute meeting that we want you to have. And that 10-minute meeting, we believe, will change your life. It takes a process to get there, but then that's all we're talking about, is living this out in a very simple way. So you've got a laser focus on what matters most.
And to continue that communication.
That's
because sometimes you have to take that time to just talk and say, how are we doing? Because, you see so many couples, you get on this trajectory, and then maybe it's just a little, but then what winds up happening, you get farther and farther and farther apart. And we just, for the sake of our church, for our world and for your family, you cannot allow that to happen. Yeah. You really do have to be intentional.
Stop living from moment to moment.
Right.
Stop putting out fires and start looking at the big picture. That's what the family board meeting is about. That's what we're calling parents to look at their family culture and say, if these things really are that important to you, which they are, when's the last time you took a weekend and said, let's take some time and think about how are we being intentional?
Right.
That's what we're hoping. That's what we're encouraging. That's what we want to keep pushing, is take some time so that you can be united and more intentional and focus on the right things first.
Yeah.
Yes, please. That sounds fantastic. So I guess maybe a selfish question for me, and all the other listeners, of course. Where do we find all these, the worksheets, information about the course, all that stuff? Where do we go?
Yeah, so if you go to messyfamilyproject.org, we have up on our front page of the website, we'll have family board meeting. You can sign up to get the free worksheet and the free webinar right there. You'll get it via email. And then if for those who are interested in the course, which is a workshop, it'll be live, but also the recordings, there is a link there as well. But messyfamilyproject.org is the easiest way to do that. And we also link out to podcasts that we talk about this as well.
Perfect.
Very good. And then we can have a link down in the show notes for folks too.
So you can just swipe over, then tap on the link.
Oh, perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much for doing that. We really, obviously, I'm sure we're communicating. We just are so passionate about this because one thing we tell families all the time is Catholic families have what the world is looking for. We need to believe that. Yeah. We need to believe that the love that you have, the love of God for the church that you are witnessing to in your family life, that is what all the lost people, all the wounded people walking around in the world that we're seeing right now in our culture, you have what they're looking for.
Right.
And that it's that love and that love of God for humanity that is imaged in your family. And family life, your family life, everyone who's listening, your family life is way more important than you may even realize.
It's true.
Woo!
Look out!
There's too much at stake here, people. We cannot just let things happen to us. We've got to show up and bring our A game, and there's a lot riding on it that we may or may not have been aware of. So thank you for bringing our awareness to that, and thank you for just having this discussion. I'm sure it's been a blessing to so many, and I can't wait for people to be able to take advantage of the family board meeting later in February. Thank you guys again for joining us on the Wallet Win podcast. It's been such a gift.
Oh, thank you for having us. Really, it was so enjoyable.
It's super fun. Thanks.
Thank you.